I'm terminating both your division and our marriage." His words hit harder than the cancer diagnosis she'd received that morning. She stood frozen in his office, the pregnancy test still in her purse. He didn't even look up from his laptop as he destroyed her world with a pen stroke. "Your research is a financial drain. And quite frankly, so is this marriage. 2 years together," and he spoke as if canceling a disappointing investment. She discovered the lump 3 weeks ago. Stage 3, aggressive, requiring immediate treatment. The pregnancy was a miracle she'd stopped hoping for after endless doctor visits. Both precious. Both in danger. Both secrets she now decided to keep forever. "Sign here," he said, sliding divorce papers across his $12,000 desk. She signed without argument, her hand steady despite the hurricane inside her. What would you do if the person who vowed to stay through sickness and health abandoned you at your most vulnerable moment? Would you tell them the truth? Would you fight? Or would you walk away? She chose silence. She chose strength. She chose to build something remarkable from the ashes. 7 years later, when he discovers what he threw away, will his billions be enough to buy back what he lost? If this sounds like a story you can't miss, hit that like button and stick around. This is going to be a journey you won't forget. You might think you know how this story ends. Trust me, you don't. Victoria Lawrence always trusted science more than people. Numbers never lied. Data didn't betray. And research followed logical patterns that, with enough persistence, eventually revealed their secrets. It was what made her one of the most promising cardiac researchers in the country. What she never expected was that her methodical approach to life would fail her when it came to matters of the heart. Both literally and figuratively. She first met Maxwell Reed at a medical technology fundraiser where she was representing her university's research department. Victoria was explaining her work on pediatric cardiac anomalies to a small group of potential donors when she noticed him watching from across the room. Unlike the other billionaires in attendance, dressed in virtually identical black tuxedos, Maxwell wore midnight blue. It wasn't the only thing that set him apart. "Your presentation is fascinating," he said later at the bar, sliding onto the stool beside her. "But I'm curious why you're focusing only on surgical interventions instead of preventative approaches." Victoria looked up, surprised by the informed question. Most donors wanted to know about success rates and tax benefits, not methodological frameworks. "Preventative medicine is ideal," she replied cautiously, "but for children born with congenital heart defects, the damage is already done. My research focuses on minimally invasive solutions that can grow with the child, eliminating the need for multiple surgeries throughout their lives." Maxwell nodded, his eyes revealing genuine interest rather than polite small talk. "Adaptive technology. That's remarkable. It would be if I could secure enough funding to move beyond theoretical models." Victoria took a sip of her sparkling water. "Unfortunately, investors prefer quicker returns than pediatric research typically provides. Some investors have more patience than others." He extended his hand. "Maxwell Reed. I know who you are, Mr. Reed." Everyone did. At 38, Maxwell had built Reed Innovations into a technology empire worth over $50 billion. His face regularly appeared on business magazine covers, usually with headlines like, "The Future According to Reed," or "Maxwell's Silver Hammer, How One Man is Reshaping Tech." "Then you have me at a disadvantage." His smile was warm, unexpected from someone rumored to be ruthlessly ambitious. Victoria Lawrence. Associate Professor of Biomedical Engineering at Westlake University. Dr. Lawrence. Would you be willing to continue this conversation over dinner sometime? I'd like to hear more about your adaptive technology approach. Victoria had heard the rumors about Maxwell Reed. That he collected companies the way some men collected sports cars. That his charm was a tactical weapon deployed with surgical precision. That he'd never let emotion interfere with strategic objectives. Is this a business dinner or a personal invitation, Mr. Reed? His eyes crinkled slightly at her directness. Let's start with business and see where the conversation leads us. 3 months later, Victoria found herself moving into Maxwell's penthouse overlooking Central Park. 6 months after that, they were married in a private ceremony attended by only their closest friends and family. Maxwell's board members were shocked. Victoria's colleagues were concerned. Her best friend, Nora Zhang, didn't bother to hide her skepticism. He's known for corporate takeovers, not lifelong commitments, Nora warned over coffee the week after Victoria's honeymoon. Just be careful you don't become another acquisition. You don't know him like I do, Victoria insisted. Behind closed doors, he's different. More vulnerable. More human. Nora raised an eyebrow. And your research? Has he followed through on funding it? Victoria smiled, remembering the night Maxwell had surprised her with news that Reed Innovations was establishing a dedicated cardiovascular research division with her as director. He's given me everything he promised. A fully equipped lab, a team of researchers, 5 years of guaranteed funding. He believes in my work, Nora. I hope you're right. For your sake and for all those kids you want to help. For the first year of their marriage, Victoria believed she had achieved the impossible. A passionate relationship with a man who stimulated her intellectually and supported her professionally. The research division flourished under her leadership, making significant advances in biocompatible materials that could adapt to growing cardiac tissue. Then Reed Innovations hit a rough quarter. Nothing catastrophic, merely a flattening of growth that made shareholders nervous. Victoria noticed subtle changes in Maxwell. Late nights at the office. Increasing irritability. Critical questions about research expenditures that previously hadn't concerned him. The board is breathing down my neck about unnecessary divisions, he mentioned casually one evening as they prepared for bed. Your department's expenses are drawing attention. We're on the verge of a breakthrough, Maxwell. Victoria sat on the edge of their bed, suddenly alert. The new polymer we're testing shows remarkable integration with cardiac tissue in the lab models. We're ahead of schedule. But how far from market? His voice took on the edge she'd heard him use with underperforming executives but never with her. The board wants timelines, not possibilities. You know medical research doesn't work that way. We're talking about children's hearts, not smartphone upgrades. Maxwell's jaw tightened. Don't condescend to me, Victoria. I understand perfectly well what's at stake. What I need is something concrete to show the board next quarter. The conversation ended there, but a chill had entered their relationship. Victoria found herself working longer hours, pushing her team harder, desperate to accelerate results that couldn't be rushed. Meanwhile, strange symptoms began to plague her. Fatigue she attributed to stress. A persistent pain she ignored as workout strain. A small lump she discovered one morning in the shower but convinced herself was nothing serious. Until she couldn't ignore it anymore. The morning Victoria received her diagnosis was also the morning she discovered she was pregnant. 2 life-altering pieces of news delivered within hours of each other. Stage 3 breast cancer requiring immediate aggressive treatment. And a pregnancy she and Maxwell had stopped actively pursuing after months of disappointment. She sat in her car outside the doctor's office, hands trembling on the steering wheel, mind racing with impossible calculations. The treatment would endanger the pregnancy. Delaying treatment would endanger her. Telling Maxwell might endanger both if he insisted on immediate intervention for her health at the expense of their child. The child he didn't know about. The child he'd made clear he wasn't sure he wanted. Children complicate things, he'd said during one of their early conversations about family. I'm not opposed to the idea eventually, but my focus right now is building something that will outlast me. Victoria had thought she'd changed his mind as their relationship deepened. Now she wasn't certain of anything except that she needed time to think. Time to form a plan. Time she apparently didn't have, because her phone buzzed with a message from Maxwell's executive assistant. "Mr. Reed requests your presence in the main boardroom immediately." The Reed Innovations headquarters occupied 30 floors of a gleaming skyscraper in Midtown Manhattan. Victoria had always loved visiting Maxwell's domain, seeing how people responded to him with a mixture of fear and admiration. Today, the sleek corridors felt cold, hostile. As if the building itself knew she didn't belong. The boardroom doors were open when she arrived. Maxwell sat at the head of the massive table, surrounded by board members and executives in near-identical dark suits. His expression gave away nothing as she entered. "Victoria. Thank you for coming on short notice." His tone was formal, professional, as if addressing a business associate rather than his wife. "Please, take a seat." She remained standing. "What's this about, Maxwell?" Reed Innovations is implementing immediate restructuring to address shareholder concerns. He glanced down at the tablet in front of him. The Cardiovascular Research Division will be closed effective immediately. All projects terminated, all staff reassigned or compensated according to their contracts. The room swam before Victoria's eyes. "You're shutting down my division. Without even discussing it with me first. This is a business decision based on projected returns and strategic allocation of resources." Maxwell didn't meet her eyes as he spoke. "The board voted unanimously this morning." Victoria looked around the table, seeing no sympathy, only calculated assessment of how she would react. These people had never believed in her research. Never believed in her. They'd seen her as Maxwell's infatuation, a temporary diversion from business as usual. "You promised me 5 years, she said quietly, fighting to keep her voice steady. "We're only 14 months in. Circumstances change. The market doesn't reward sentimentality." "Sentimentality?" The word sliced through her like a scalpel. "Is that what you call honoring your commitments? Is that what our marriage is to you as well? A sentimental arrangement subject to market conditions?" A flicker of something crossed Maxwell's face. Irritation. Perhaps even guilt. But it vanished quickly, replaced by the impassive mask he wore in negotiations. "Victoria, this isn't the appropriate venue for personal discussions." "When is the appropriate time, Maxwell?" "After you've already made all the decisions." She pressed a hand against her stomach, feeling suddenly nauseated. From stress or morning sickness, she couldn't tell. "Perhaps we should continue this conversation at home," he offered, glancing uncomfortably at his board members. "No need." Victoria straightened her shoulders, sudden clarity washing over her. "I understand perfectly. The cardiovascular division isn't performing to expectations. I'm not performing to expectations. You're cutting your losses. That's not what this is." "It's exactly what this is." She took a deep breath, making the most important decision of her life in that moment. "You've made your choice, Maxwell. Now I'm making mine." Victoria turned and walked toward the door, then paused. "You once told me you wanted to build something that would outlast you. I hope whatever that is fills the void where your humanity should be." The divorce papers arrived at her office the next morning. Maxwell had moved swiftly, efficiently, like he did with all business matters. Victoria signed them without reading the details, without fighting for the settlements she deserved, without revealing either her illness or her pregnancy. She wanted nothing from him except her freedom. The day Victoria left Reed Innovations for the last time, carrying only her personal research notes and a small box of belongings, she made 3 phone calls. The first to her oncologist to schedule treatment that would protect her pregnancy as much as possible. The second to Nora, who immediately offered her spare bedroom for as long as needed. And the third to Dr. William Barrett, the elderly philanthropist whose wife had died from heart disease and who had once expressed interest in Victoria's research approach. "Dr. Barrett," she said when he answered, her voice steady despite everything. "You once told me if I ever wanted to pursue my research independently, you'd be interested in discussing possibilities. Is that offer still open? Indeed it is, Dr. Lawrence. I've been following your work with great interest. I find myself unexpectedly available. And extremely motivated. What followed was the most challenging period of Victoria's life. Cancer treatment while pregnant. Building a research team from scratch with Dr. Barrett's support. Giving birth to her daughter Zara 4 weeks early but mercifully healthy after carefully balanced medical interventions. Through it all, Victoria never contacted Maxwell. Never told him about their child. Never revealed her illness. The world of Reed Innovations and its brilliant, cold-hearted CEO became part of a past she refused to revisit. Until 7 years later, when an envelope arrived bearing the company logo she had tried so hard to forget. "Mommy, is that work stuff?" Zara asked over breakfast, her small fingers carefully arranging strawberry slices into patterns on her yogurt. Victoria slipped the unopened envelope into her bag. "Just boring grown-up mail, sweetie. Finish your breakfast or we'll be late again." Zara sighed dramatically, a gesture so reminiscent of her father that Victoria felt her heart clench. "Piano is boring. Can I skip it today?" "We don't quit things just because they're challenging," Victoria replied, the irony of her own words not lost on her. Hadn't she quit her marriage rather than fight? Hadn't she walked away without giving Maxwell a chance to make different choices? No, she reminded herself firmly. She hadn't quit. She had survived. There's a difference. "Fine," Zara conceded. "But can we get ice cream after? If you practice without complaining, absolutely." Later that evening, after Zara was asleep, Victoria finally opened the envelope. Inside was an invitation to the Barrett Foundation Medical Innovation Awards, where her cardiac implant was nominated for the top prize. The handwritten note attached made her hands shake. "Victoria, your work deserves this recognition. I'll be there as a major sponsor. Maxwell." 7 years of silence broken by 12 carefully chosen words. No mention of their past. No questions about her life now. Just acknowledgement of her professional achievement. Exactly what she would expect from Maxwell Reed. Victoria's finger hovered over his name, tracing the precise, controlled handwriting she remembered so well. She had followed his career from a distance, watching as Reed Innovations expanded into new markets, as his personal fortune doubled and then tripled. Occasionally she caught glimpses of him in business news segments, looking exactly the same yet somehow hollower. Successful beyond measure and, she suspected, utterly alone. She had built something different in those 7 years. A revolutionary medical device that had already saved hundreds of children's lives. A small but dedicated research foundation funded by Dr. Barrett's generosity. A home filled with Zara's laughter and artwork and endless questions about how the world worked. "You should go," Nora said the next day when Victoria showed her the invitation. "Show him exactly what he threw away." "This isn't about Maxwell," Victoria insisted. "It's about the research. About validation for the approach he dismissed as unprofitable." Nora raised an eyebrow in familiar skepticism. "Then why are you so rattled by his note?" "I'm not rattled. I'm..." Victoria searched for the right word. "Conflicted." "About?" "Zara." Victoria sighed, voicing the concern that had kept her awake most of the night. "If I attend this ceremony, if I see Maxwell again, am I reopening a door that should stay closed? Does he have a right to know about her? Do I have a right to keep them apart?" Nora considered this, unusually serious. "He gave up his rights when he discarded you both. But that doesn't answer whether Zara has a right to know her father. She's never asked. I've told her he wasn't ready to be a parent, and that's been enough so far. She's 7, Victoria. Eventually, it won't be." The realization settled uncomfortably in Victoria's chest. She had built her new life on carefully maintained separation between past and present. Seeing Maxwell again would challenge that boundary, perhaps irreparably. "What would you do?" she asked Nora. "I'd wear something spectacular, accept that award, and watch his face when he realizes everything he lost." Nora grinned wickedly, then softened. "But I'm not you. And I don't have a child to consider." Victoria spent the next week weighing her options, turning possibilities over in her mind the way she analyzed research variables. Attending meant potentially facing Maxwell, opening old wounds, raising questions about Zara. Not attending meant allowing fear to diminish her professional achievement, giving him power he hadn't earned. In the end, it was Zara who inadvertently made the decision for her. "Ms. Winters says I'm getting a special award at school," she announced one evening as Victoria helped her with homework. "For my science project on hearts." "That's wonderful, sweetie. I'm so proud of you. Will you come see me get it?" Zara looked up with Maxwell's penetrating gaze. "Even though it's on a work day?" "Of course I will." Victoria kissed the top of her daughter's head. "I would never miss something so important." The words echoed in her mind later as she stared at the Barrett Foundation invitation. What kind of example would she set for her daughter if she let an old hurt prevent her from claiming recognition for work that mattered? What would she tell Zara about facing difficulties if she herself hid from this challenge? Victoria picked up her phone and sent a brief email accepting the invitation. Then, before she could reconsider, she made a second decision. She called Nora. "I need a spectacular dress," she said when her friend answered. "And I need you to watch Zara the night of the ceremony." "Now that's more like it," Nora replied with obvious approval. Operation Make Maxwell Miserable is officially underway. The Barrett Foundation ceremony was held at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, a venue grand enough to match the significance of the Innovation Award and its $1 million grant. Victoria arrived alone, her heart pounding as she ascended the museum steps in a gown the color of midnight with subtle silver accents that caught the light like stars. Inside, the medical research community's elite mingled with wealthy donors and industry leaders. Victoria accepted congratulations from colleagues, discussed her work with interested philanthropists, and carefully scanned the room for the one face she both dreaded and anticipated seeing. She spotted him near the main exhibit hall, surrounded by the usual orbit of people seeking his attention. Maxwell Reed at 45 looked essentially unchanged. Still physically fit, impeccably dressed in a tuxedo that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary, his dark hair now distinguished by slight silver at the temples. He hadn't seen her yet, giving Victoria a moment to steady herself before the inevitable encounter. "Dr. Lawrence." The voice came from behind her, warm and genuinely pleased. Victoria turned to find Dr. William Barrett himself, the elderly philanthropist who had believed in her when Maxwell hadn't. "Dr. Barrett." She smiled, clasping his offered hands. "Thank you for this evening. For everything, really. My dear, the gratitude is entirely mine." His eyes twinkled beneath bushy white brows. "Your work is exactly what Catherine would have wanted this foundation to support. Innovative, compassionate, and transformative. Still, taking a chance on me when I had nothing but research notes and determination was an extraordinary leap of faith. The best investments always are. Dar." Barrett glanced over her shoulder, his expression cooling slightly. "Ah, it seems someone else wishes to acknowledge your success." Victoria didn't need to turn to know who approached. She could feel Maxwell's presence like a change in barometric pressure before a storm. "Dr. Lawrence," Maxwell's voice was controlled, professional. "Congratulations on your nomination." She turned slowly, meeting his gaze directly for the first time in 7 years. "Mr. Reed. Thank you for the invitation." Something flickered in his eyes at her formal address, quickly masked. "The foundation is honored to have you here tonight." Dr. Barrett looked between them, tactfully sensing the tension. "I should greet the other nominees. Dr. Lawrence, we'll speak more later." As the elderly philanthropist moved away, Victoria found herself alone with Maxwell, acutely aware of curious glances from nearby guests who recognized them both. "You look well," Maxwell said, his eyes taking in her appearance with an intensity that reminded her of earlier, happier times. "Success agrees with me." Victoria kept her tone neutral, refusing to reveal how her heart raced traitorously in his presence. "Clearly." He gestured toward the bar. "May I get you a drink before the ceremony begins?" She hesitated, then nodded. What was the harm in one civilized conversation? "Sparkling water, thank you." As they moved through the crowd, Victoria noticed how people responded to Maxwell's presence. The subtle straightening of postures, the eager smiles, the deference. His world remained unchanged, a carefully maintained ecosystem with him at its center. "Your work has exceeded all expectations," he said as they reached the bar. "The adaptive implant is genuinely revolutionary." "Yes," she agreed simply, accepting the water he handed her. "It is." The application in pediatric cases has been particularly impressive. Growing with the patient, eliminating the need for multiple surgeries. He spoke as if discussing an interesting business case rather than the culmination of her life's work. "Quite remarkable." "For a waste of company resources, you mean?" The words slipped out before Victoria could stop them, edged with 7 years of stored hurt. Maxwell's expression tightened. "I was wrong." "Yes," she said again. "You were." Before he could respond, chimes sounded throughout the hall, signaling guests to take their seats for the ceremony. Victoria turned toward the main room, eager to escape the intensity of his attention. "You're at my table," Maxwell said quietly. "As a major sponsor, I arranged it." Of course he had. Maxwell Reed always arranged things precisely as he wanted them. Victoria nodded once, not trusting herself to speak, and followed him to a table directly in front of the stage. Perfect positioning, like everything in his world. The ceremony proceeded with elegant efficiency. Video presentations showcasing each nominated innovation. Speeches about the importance of medical advancement. Heartfelt testimonials from patients whose lives had been changed by the technologies being honored. When the video featuring Victoria's cardiac implant played, showing children running and playing who might otherwise have been confined to careful, restricted lives, she felt Maxwell shift beside her. Glancing sideways, she was startled to see genuine emotion in his usually controlled expression. Not calculation or assessment, but something that looked remarkably like regret. "And now," Dr. Barrett announced from the stage, "the moment we've all been waiting for. This year's recipient of the Barrett Foundation Medical Innovation Award, which includes a grant of $1 million to continue their groundbreaking work." Victoria held her breath. Dr. Victoria Lawrence, for the development of the adaptive pediatric cardiac implant. The room erupted in applause. Victoria rose, momentarily overwhelmed by vindication and triumph and 1,000 other emotions she couldn't name. As she made her way to the stage, she felt Maxwell's eyes following her, witnessing the moment his biggest miscalculation became publicly, irrefutably clear. Taking the crystal award from Dr. Barrett's hands, Victoria faced the audience with composed dignity. "Thank you, Dr. Barrett, distinguished guests, colleagues, and supporters. This honor belongs not just to me, but to every child who bravely participated in our clinical trials, every parent who trusted us with their most precious treasure, every researcher who believed this was possible when conventional wisdom said it wasn't." Her gaze found Maxwell's for the briefest moment. 7 years ago, this research was deemed too speculative, too unlikely to yield profitable results in an acceptable timeframe. Today, over 400 children are living normal lives because we persisted anyway. Victoria continued her acceptance speech, acknowledging the researchers and doctors who had joined her cause after she left Reed Innovations. She thanked Dr. Barrett for his unwavering support, parents who had entrusted their children to an unproven treatment, and the medical community that had eventually embraced her approach. Throughout it all, she felt Maxwell watching her, his gaze a physical weight she couldn't ignore. When she finally stepped down from the stage, crystal award clutched in her hands, she was immediately surrounded by well-wishers and colleagues offering congratulations. By the time she extracted herself from the crowd, Maxwell was nowhere to be seen. Victoria felt a confusing mixture of relief and disappointment as she made her way toward a quiet terrace overlooking the museum gardens. She needed a moment alone to process the night's emotions. The October air carried an unexpected warmth, gentle against her skin as she looked out over the illuminated paths and sculptures below. Victoria pulled her phone from her evening bag, knowing Zara would still be awake despite the late hour. Her daughter had insisted on staying up for results. "Hello, my little scientist," Victoria said when Nora passed the phone to Zara. "Did you win, Mommy? Did you get the big prize?" Zara's excited voice filled Victoria with a warmth no award could match. "I did, sweetheart. The crystal trophy and everything. I knew it. I told Aunt Nora you'd win because your heart fixer is the best one ever. Is it heavy? Does it sparkle? Can I show it to my class for show and tell?" Victoria laughed. "Yes to all three questions. Now, it's way past your bedtime, young lady." "But I'm not tired," Zara protested through an unmistakable yawn. "Even brilliant scientists need sleep." "I'll see you in the morning, and I'll bring the award with me. Promise? Cross my heart. Now be good for Aunt Nora and go to sleep. I love you to the moon and back. And to Jupiter and beyond." Zara completed their ritual farewell before hanging up. Victoria slipped the phone back into her bag, still smiling at her daughter's enthusiasm. The sound of footsteps behind her wiped the expression from her face. She didn't need to turn to know who had joined her on the terrace. "Victoria." Maxwell's voice was quiet in the night air. "Maxwell." She kept her eyes fixed on the gardens below. "I didn't mean to monopolize your event. It's not my event. And your work deserved the recognition." He moved to stand beside her, careful to maintain a respectful distance. "I wanted to congratulate you properly. Without an audience." "Thank you." Victoria turned slightly, studying his profile in the dim light. "I should be going. It's getting late." "Who was that?" The question came abruptly, his tone oddly vulnerable. "On the phone, I mean." Victoria considered lying, considered creating some fictional colleague or friend. But the time for deception had passed. She had nothing to hide, nothing to be ashamed of. "My daughter," she said simply. "Zara." Maxwell went completely still. "You have a child?" "Yes." Victoria turned to face him fully now, a ward cradled protectively against her body. "She's 7. 7 years." She saw the calculation happen behind his eyes, watched understanding dawn with devastating clarity. "After we..." He couldn't finish the sentence. "Yes. Were you..." His voice grew strained. "When I ended things. When you terminated my division and our marriage." Victoria kept her voice steady. "Yes, Maxwell. I was 8 weeks pregnant when you told me my work was worthless and I had failed to meet your expectations." He took a step back as if physically struck. "Why didn't you tell me? You made your priorities abundantly clear. The company came first. Always." She shook her head. "You told me repeatedly you weren't ready for children. That they would distract from building your legacy. I had a right to know." His voice hardened slightly. "Did you?" Victoria met his gaze without flinching. "The man who discarded me like an underperforming asset. The man who broke every promise when the market dipped. That man had earned the right to influence a child's life." Each question landed like a precision strike. Maxwell ran a hand through his perfectly styled hair, momentarily disheveling it in a way she had once found endearing. "I would have supported you financially. Ensured you both had everything you needed." "I didn't need your money," she replied simply. I needed your partnership. Your respect. Your humanity. When those disappeared, there was nothing left worth saving. Maxwell looked physically pained, an expression she had never seen on his carefully controlled face. Does she know about me? She knows her father wasn't ready to be a parent. That's enough for now. Victoria glanced at her watch. I should go. The babysitter is expecting me. Wait. He moved toward her, stopping when she tensed. Please. Just, what is she like? The question surprised Victoria. Not demands about visitation or legal rights or DNA tests. Not accusations about keeping Zara secret. Just genuine curiosity about who their daughter was. She's brilliant, Victoria said after a moment. Curious about everything. Stubborn beyond measure. She collects rocks and knows their geological classifications. She asks questions that make adults uncomfortable. A small, genuine smile crossed her face. She's extraordinary. She sounds like you, he said quietly. She has your eyes, Victoria replied. And your focus. When she cares about something, nothing else exists in that moment. Maxwell seemed to absorb this detail like a physical blow. Something shifted in his expression, a vulnerability she had glimpsed only in their most private moments years ago. I'd like to meet her. The words emerged softly, almost tentatively. If that's possible. If you'd allow it. Victoria studied him, searching for ulterior motives, for the strategic calculation that defined his business dealings. Instead, she found only raw uncertainty. Why? Because she's my daughter. Biology isn't enough, Maxwell. It never was. Then because I've spent 7 years building an empire that feels hollow. Because I've made every mistake possible and still haven't figured out how to fix any of them. His words rushed out, unplanned and raw. Because maybe meeting her would help me become someone worthy of knowing her. Victoria had never heard Maxwell speak with such unguarded emotion. The man who measured every word for maximum impact was suddenly speaking from a place beyond calculation. She opened her evening bag and withdrew a business card, offering it to him. My private number. Call me next week. We'll discuss it. He accepted the card as if it were made of glass. Thank you. I'm not promising anything. Zara's welfare comes first. Always. As it should. She nodded once, then moved past him toward the door. Good night, Maxwell. Victoria, he called softly, making her pause. Congratulations. Not just for the award. For everything you've built. It's remarkable. Something flickered in her chest, not forgiveness, not yet, but perhaps the seed of understanding. Good night, she repeated, then slipped back into the museum, leaving him alone with the weight of revelation. The next week passed in a blur of media interviews about the Barrett Prize, routine research oversight, and anxious consideration of Maxwell's potential place in Zara's life. Victoria jumped whenever her phone rang, alternately hoping for and dreading his call. When it finally came, she was helping Zara with a science project at their kitchen table. This is Dr. Lawrence, she answered professionally, not recognizing the number. Victoria. Maxwell's voice was formal, controlled. I hope I'm not interrupting. Just a moment. She covered the phone, turning to her daughter. Zara, can you get started on the diagram? I need to take this call. When Zara was absorbed in her work, Victoria stepped into the next room. Hello, Maxwell. I've been thinking about our conversation, he began. About meeting Zara. And I'd like to proceed, if you're still amenable. Perhaps somewhere casual. A park or a restaurant? Victoria had considered this carefully over the past week. There's a coffee shop near our home. Neutral territory with enough ambient noise for privacy. Whatever you think best. His deference was new, unsettling in its sincerity. When would be convenient for you both? They arranged a meeting for Saturday morning. Victoria didn't tell Zara who they were meeting, only that he was a friend from work who was interested in her rock collection. If things went poorly, it would be easier to explain away a one-time encounter than the appearance and disappearance of a father. Should I bring my whole collection? Zara asked excitedly on Saturday morning, already pulling specimen boxes from her shelves. Maybe just your favorite book and a few special samples, Victoria suggested, watching her daughter with a mixture of love and anxiety. How much of Maxwell would she see in Zara today? How much would Maxwell recognize of himself? The coffee shop was already busy when they arrived. Victoria spotted Maxwell immediately, seated at a corner table wearing casual clothes that probably cost more than most people's formal wear. He had arrived early, she noted. Unlike his usual precisely timed entrances that ensured others waited for him. Is that him? Zara asked, following her mother's gaze. Yes, that's Mr. Reed. Zara studied him with frank curiosity. He looks serious. Is he nice? Victoria hesitated. He's interesting. And very smart. Like you. Zara smiled up at her. In different ways. Victoria squeezed her daughter's hand gently. Come on, let's say hello. Maxwell stood as they approached, his usual composed demeanor visibly strained. Victoria saw him take in Zara's appearance, his eyes widening slightly at the unmistakable resemblance. Zara, Victoria said gently, this is Mr. Reed. The friend I told you about. The child regarded him solemnly. Hello. Hello, Zara. Maxwell's voice caught slightly, betraying his emotion. It's very nice to meet you. Mom says you build things that help people, she said directly. Like computers and machines. That's right. My company makes technology that helps people communicate and work together. She considered this. Mom builds things too. She fixed hearts that were broken when kids were born. I know, he said softly. Your mother is brilliant. Zara nodded as if this were simply common knowledge. I brought my geology book. Do you know about rocks? Not as much as I should, Maxwell admitted. Maybe you could teach me. Victoria watched in amazement as her daughter launched into an enthusiastic explanation of igneous, sedimentary, and metamorphic rock formations. More surprising was Maxwell's genuine engagement, asking thoughtful questions and showing real interest in Zara's passionate descriptions. This wasn't the polite tolerance he usually showed in social situations. This was authentic curiosity. This one is my favorite, Zara said, carefully removing a piece of rose quartz from her small collection box. It's not rare or anything, but I like how it looks different in different lights. It's beautiful, Maxwell agreed. Like it has secrets inside. Zara beamed at his understanding. Exactly. That's what I always think too. Victoria sipped her coffee, observing their interaction with growing wonder. Maxwell Reed, the man who regularly intimidated corporate boards and political leaders, was completely captivated by a 7-year-old's rock collection. How did you get interested in geology? He asked during a natural pause. We went hiking and I found a rock with crystals inside, Zara explained. Mom got me a book about it, and then we went to the museum, and now I have 27 rocks in my collection. 29, Victoria corrected with a smile. Remember the ones Aunt Nora brought from Arizona? Right. 29. Zara looked at Maxwell speculatively. Do you collect anything? The question caught him off guard. I used to collect first edition books. When I was younger. Do you still have them? Some, he admitted. I haven't added to the collection in a long time. Why not? I've been busy with work, he said, then something crossed his face, recognition of how hollow the explanation sounded. But maybe I should start again. The things we love shouldn't get lost in being busy. Zara nodded sagely. That's what Mom says too. She says being busy is just an excuse people make when they forget what matters. Maxwell's eyes met Victoria's over their daughter's head. Your mother is very wise. Eventually, Victoria glanced at her watch. We should go, Zara. You have piano in 30 minutes. Can Mr. Reed come hear me play sometime? Zara asked, surprising both adults. Victoria recovered first. Maybe someday. We'll see. As they prepared to leave, Zara formally extended her hand to Maxwell. It was nice to meet you, Mr. Reed. Thank you for letting me tell you about my rocks. The pleasure was mine, he replied, shaking her small hand gently. I learned a lot. After Zara stepped away to put on her jacket, Maxwell turned to Victoria. She's incredible. Thank you for this. She seems to like you, Victoria said cautiously. That's a good start. Can I see her again? Let's take this slowly, Maxwell. For everyone's sake. She hesitated. But yes, I think that would be possible. Over the following weeks, Maxwell began carefully integrating himself into their lives. Always at Victoria's discretion, always respectful of boundaries. He attended Zara's piano recital, sitting quietly in the back. He joined them at the Natural History Museum, where Zara led them through the geology exhibit with authority beyond her years. He sent books about rocks and science, carefully vetted by Victoria before being passed to their daughter. He never pushed for explanations about Zara's paternity. Never attempted to assert rights or make demands. Instead, he simply showed up, consistently and patiently, earning trust through actions rather than expectations. He's different with her, Nora observed after watching Maxwell and Zara examining rock samples through a magnifying glass at Victoria's kitchen table. Nothing like the corporate shark I remember. I know, Victoria replied quietly. It's almost like she brings out a version of him I thought disappeared years ago. The question is whether it's genuine change or just his newest acquisition strategy. Victoria considered this. I don't think he's faking his interest in Zara. The connection seems real. And what about his interest in you? Nora raised an eyebrow. Because he definitely still has feelings there. That's irrelevant, Victoria insisted, ignoring the flutter in her chest when Maxwell occasionally looked at her the way he had in the beginning. This is about Zara having a relationship with her father, nothing more. If you say so. Nora clearly didn't believe her. Just be careful. Heart wounds take the longest to heal, and yours still has scars. 3 months after their coffee shop meeting, Victoria agreed to let Maxwell take Zara to a special geology exhibit opening on his own. A significant step in trust that left her both anxious and relieved as she finally had an evening to catch up on research papers. When her phone rang at 8:30, Maxwell's name on the display sent immediate panic through her. What's wrong? She answered without preamble. Nothing's wrong, he reassured her quickly. We're fine. Zara had a question that I thought you should answer. Victoria heard rustling as the phone changed hands. Mom. Zara's voice came through clearly. Is Mr. Reed my dad? The question stole Victoria's breath. Why do you ask that, sweetheart? Because Mrs. Abernathy from the Museum Foundation called him my father when she was showing us the special rocks. She said, your father must be very proud of your knowledge, and Mr. Reed didn't correct her. And then I started thinking about how we have the same eyes, and how he focuses on things just like I do, and how he showed up right after you won your big award. Her daughter's analytical mind had connected the dots perfectly. Victoria closed her eyes briefly. Can you put Mr. Reed back on the phone, please? More rustling. Victoria, I didn't say anything, Maxwell began immediately. Mrs. Abernathy made an assumption, and I didn't want to contradict her in front of Zara without speaking to you first. Bring her home now, please. We need to have a family conversation. The word family hung between them, loaded with implications neither was ready to fully address. Of course. We're on our way. 30 minutes later, Victoria sat with Maxwell and Zara in their living room. Her daughter looked between them with keen intelligence, waiting for honest answers. Zara, Victoria began carefully, you asked an important question, and you deserve the truth. Yes, Mr. Reed is your biological father. Zara nodded, processing this confirmation of what she'd already deduced. Why didn't you tell me? Victoria glanced at Maxwell, who remained silent, allowing her to navigate this moment. When you were born, your father and I weren't together anymore. He didn't know about you until recently. Why not? That's my fault, Maxwell said quietly. I made decisions that hurt your mother deeply. I wasn't the kind of person who deserved to be in your life then. Zara turned her penetrating gaze to him. But you want to be in my life now? More than anything, he replied with genuine emotion. Getting to know you has been the greatest gift I never knew I needed. Is that why you've been spending time with us? Because you want to be my dad? That's part of it, he acknowledged. But also because I've discovered how much I missed by not being there from the beginning. I'd like the chance to make up for that, if you'll allow me. Zara considered this with remarkable maturity. Does this mean you'll be living with us now? Like Katie's parents who got back together after being divorced. Victoria and Maxwell exchanged startled glances. No, sweetheart, Victoria explained gently. Your father and I aren't getting back together. But we both care about you very much, and we'll work together to make sure you have both of us in your life in a way that makes sense. Oh. Zara seemed to process this. So it's like Sam's parents. They live in different houses but they both come to his school plays and stuff. Something like that, Maxwell agreed. If that's okay with you. I think so. Zara looked between them again. Can I still call you Mr. Reed, or should I call you Dad? Maxwell swallowed hard, visibly moved. You can call me whatever makes you comfortable. We can figure that out together. Okay. Zara nodded decisively. I think I'd like to try calling you Dad. Not all the time yet. Just to see how it feels. I'd like that very much, Maxwell replied, his voice rough with emotion. After Zara went to bed, Victoria and Maxwell sat in uncomfortable silence in her living room. The evening had taken an unexpected turn, accelerating their carefully managed timeline. I'm sorry, Maxwell finally said. I never intended for it to happen this way. I know. Victoria sighed. She was bound to figure it out eventually. She's too smart not to. She's extraordinary. You've done an amazing job raising her. Thank you. Victoria studied him in the soft lamplight. You've surprised me, Maxwell. I expected demands and lawyers once you knew about her. Instead, you've been patient. Respectful. I've had 7 years to reflect on my mistakes, he said quietly. 7 years watching my empire grow while feeling increasingly hollow inside it. Meeting Zara, seeing what I threw away. He shook his head. I won't make the same mistakes again. What exactly are you saying? I'm saying I want to be a real father to Zara. Not just weekend visits and holiday appearances, but genuinely present in her life. He met Victoria's gaze directly. And I'm saying that knowing you again, seeing the remarkable woman you've become, has made me realize what I lost wasn't just time with my daughter. Victoria felt her heart rate accelerate. Maxwell. I'm not asking for anything, he clarified quickly. I don't expect forgiveness or second chances. I just want you to know that I recognize the magnitude of what I discarded. The person I was then doesn't deserve either of you. The person I'm trying to become hopes to earn a place in both your lives, in whatever capacity you'll allow. Victoria was silent for a long moment. When you ended our marriage, I was pregnant and had just been diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer. Maxwell went completely still. What? I received both pieces of news the morning of that board meeting. I was going to tell you that night, before you made your priorities so abundantly clear. Horror dawned on his face. Victoria, I had no idea. No, you didn't. Because you never asked. Never looked beyond quarterly projections and board expectations to see what was happening in your own home. Her voice remained steady despite the painful memories. I fought cancer while pregnant, Maxwell. I built my research from nothing while undergoing treatments that nearly killed me. I gave birth to our daughter 4 weeks early because my body couldn't handle both cancer and pregnancy any longer. Each revelation hit him visibly, color draining from his face. How are you now? 5 years cancer-free. She unconsciously touched her left side, where reconstructive surgery had followed her mastectomy. It taught me what truly matters. Who truly matters. I should have been there, he whispered. I should have been by your side through all of it. Yes, you should have. Victoria's direct gaze held no accusation, just simple truth. But you weren't. And I survived anyway. That's something you need to understand, Maxwell. I don't need you. Zara and I have built a beautiful life without you. If you want to be part of it now, it has to be on terms that enrich what we already have, not change it to suit your vision. I understand. He nodded solemnly. I'm asking for the chance to contribute, not control. To be present without imposing. To earn trust one once betrayed. Victoria considered him thoughtfully. The Maxwell Reed she had known would never have spoken this way, with humility instead of authority. Perhaps people really could change when faced with the consequences of their choices. We'll take it one day at a time, she said finally. For Zara's sake, and maybe, eventually, for our own. In the months that followed, they created a new kind of family. Not the traditional structure Maxwell had rejected years ago, nor the isolated unit Victoria had protected fiercely. Something different, built on hard-earned wisdom and cautious hope. Maxwell proved himself through consistency. He rearranged board meetings to attend Zara's science fair. He consulted Victoria on parenting decisions instead of imposing his own solutions. He respected boundaries while gradually becoming an essential presence in their lives. And somewhere along the way, Victoria found herself looking forward to his visits. To the quiet conversations after Zara went to bed. To the shared pride in their daughter's achievements. To the rediscovery of the man she had once loved, now tempered by time and transformed by genuine remorse. One evening, nearly a year after the Barrett Foundation ceremony, they sat on Victoria's back porch watching Zara examine soil samples for a school project. Maxwell turned to Victoria with uncharacteristic hesitation. I've been thinking about something, he began cautiously. Reed Innovations is establishing a permanent fund for pediatric medical research. $10 million annually, dedicated to projects other companies consider too speculative or long-term. The board approved it unanimously yesterday. Victoria raised an eyebrow. That's significant. I'd like you to head the selection committee, he continued. Not because of our personal connection, but because no one understands better than you how to identify promising research that needs time to develop. She studied him thoughtfully. Is this about assuaging your guilt? No. Maxwell shook his head firmly. It's about learning from my mistakes. About using resources to create lasting change rather than just quarterly returns. It's about the legacy I want to leave Zara. Victoria nodded slowly. I'll consider it. On one condition. Name it. That you remember what actually matters isn't buildings with your name on them or funds established in your honor. She gestured toward their daughter, completely absorbed in her scientific exploration. It's being present for moments like this. The quiet, ordinary times that aren't impressive on paper but mean everything in a life. Maxwell followed her gaze, his expression softening. I'm learning that lesson every day. Some things can't be acquired or achieved. They can only be experienced, moment by precious moment. Exactly. Victoria smiled slightly. Keep remembering that, and we'll be okay. As the sun set over their unconventional family, Victoria reflected on the journey that had brought them here. From devastation to triumph. From betrayal to tentative forgiveness. From isolation to connection. Not a perfect ending, but a meaningful beginning. And perhaps that was the most anyone could ask, for the chance to build something better from the ruins of what was lost. Something stronger for having been broken and carefully, deliberately rebuilt. If you've ever had to rebuild your life after devastating heartbreak, or wondered if people truly can change, hit that like button and share your thoughts in the comments. Remember, sometimes the most beautiful structures are built on the foundations of what once fell apart. I'm Dr. Collins, and this has been Echoes of the Heart.